Hi everyone, welcome to our presentation of our field project. We are Jennifer, Gabriel, Erica, Jaskarin, Aaron, and Mia. Our presentation will cover lessons learned and insights gained from our 3 interviews with 3 individuals in the business community. Lainey Allen, Head of Growth at Triple Play, Jane Clark, Professional Development and Employee Engagement Specialist at the University of New Brunswick, and Peter Zissis, Chief Financial Officer for Birch Hill Private Equity. In conducting our field project for class, we had the privilege of speaking with Lainey Allen, Head of Growth at Triple Play, a new web-based tech startup. Triple Play is an employee engagement software used by companies to keep distributed employees affiliated and to strengthen a remote corporate culture. Lainey, in her role as Head of Growth, has been responsible for reaching out to potential client companies, as well as facilitating demonstrations of the software's efficacy. She is therefore uniquely qualified to speak to the changing face of corporate engagement in a post-pandemic world. The pandemic has brought about what is known as the Great Resignation, wherein scores of employees are leaving their jobs due to a lack of connection with a larger company culture. Because so many businesses have been forced to adopt a hybrid work model, many employees will work exclusively remotely, and this has detrimental impacts on workplace cohesion. Some individuals have gone through entire jobs without engaging in person with any coworkers. Triple Play aims to strengthen personal relationships among coworkers in order to create a more enjoyable work environment for all. A 2018 Gallup poll suggests that having a best friend at work can be incredibly impactful towards employee efficiency and retention. It indicates that just 20% of Americans claim to have a best friend at work. If companies were able to move this figure to 60%, however, then they would realize improved outcomes across the board, with increased profits and decreased workplace safety incidents. A social interface like Triple Play is invaluable in allowing employees to make friends at work, which has positive downstream effects as indicated by this study. Lainey also touched on a pattern wherein businesses are becoming increasingly siloed, with disconnects among various company departments. This can pose issues of miscommunication, as well as impairing a cohesive company culture. Armengo et al. In 2021 indicate how digitalization can be an effective tool in breaking down silo thinking within companies. Triple Play fulfills this role by conducting company-wide engagement events that assist in breaking down company barriers.
Creating and maintaining a positive organizational culture is essential in achieving both success for a business and its employees. Alan Cole, a former writer at Forbes, mentioned how a strong company culture can assist with the recruitment of highly skilled, experienced, talented, and valuable individuals. A positive culture can also help facilitate collaboration and teamwork between employees and departments. It can also improve employee morale while simultaneously reducing stress. And most importantly, a strong culture can improve employee job satisfaction, allowing for greater employee retention. This was one major theme that we identified in our interview with Lainey Allen, which revolved around the concept of creating a positive organizational culture as a tool for retaining highly valuable employees. In the interview, Lainey outlined how the corporate world faced the Great Resignation in 2021, as Gabe mentioned before, as many young and middle-aged employees left their jobs, citing many reasons, but one in particular was that of a lack of a welcoming work environment. Obviously, this was compounded by COVID-19, but it left a glaring hole that Lainey and Triple Play were able to fill by leveraging their software and rebuilding that positive organizational culture that was lost as businesses were frantically adjusting and transitioning to a virtual workplace. Now, the importance of a positive work culture and the financial benefits it can reap for a business have been well documented in the past. Now, let's look at the example of Salesforce. Under the leadership of its CEO, Mark Beinoff, Salesforce provided 56 hours of paid time off for volunteer purposes to its employees. And despite incentivizing individuals to be away from work, Fortune actually listed Salesforce as being one of the best places to work in America. To provide more concrete and quantitative information on how building a positive culture can specifically lead to employee retention, a 6-year study which followed 904 college graduates who were hired in 6 public accounting firms showed that the firms who had created a culture designated as emphasizing interpersonal relationships were found to retain these graduates for more than 14 months as compared to the other firms. Furthermore, a survey conducted by Glassdoor, which included participants from the UK, France, Germany, and the United States, found that company culture is one of the main reasons that 65% of the employees actually stayed at their jobs. And if their current company culture deteriorated, 71% of employees said that they would start looking for opportunities elsewhere. Now, these statistics clearly back up what Laney and AAA have been working to achieve, which is creating a positive corporate culture for its business clients and enabling them to be able to retain their employees despite the changing and fluid workplace that we have in society today.
As part of our field project, we began by interviewing Jane Clark. Jane is a professional development and employer engagement specialist for the MBA program at the University of New Brunswick. Our interview with Jane highlighted the necessity of effectively utilizing human resources as the leader of a company. However, another important lesson that Jane touched on was the importance of caring for employees and ensuring that they are not overworked. Typically, Jane would be working with the curriculum and technology while making productivity improvements to the program. However, Jane is currently taking over the position of another team member who unfortunately had to leave due to a large increase in work-related stress. The number of students at the University of New Brunswick tripled this past year, and the director did not staff up accordingly. As such, the number of students was too overwhelming for Jane's team member and forced them to take stress leave. To meet deadlines, Jane was working long hours, 7 days a week, and felt that it was unsustainable. As such, Jane recently hired a University of New Brunswick MBA alumnus for a short-term contract to help her meet deadlines and to keep her stress levels and well-being in check. Psychotherapist Olivia Rose, a spokesperson for the UK Council of Psychotherapy, discusses how many people have been struggling with feeling overwhelmed and defining boundaries between home life and work life throughout the entirety of the pandemic. She explains how lockdowns, office closures, and our limited social lives greatly contributed to the norm that we are always available and that we are always on our phones to answer work requests. As such, the pandemic exacerbated an already existing issue in our working lives. Specifically, as we transition towards a post-pandemic world, a hot topic of discussion centers around the impact that overworking staff members had on our mental health over the past 2 years. Furthermore, deciding how to create healthier boundaries will be challenging but integral as the world slowly returns to the office and we work towards a more balanced future. One common suggestion has been the implementation of a trial and error period so that people and companies can figure out how to benefit both their personal and their professional worlds. Taya Galler, an assistant professor of clinical psychiatry medicine at the University of Pennsylvania, explains that it can feel like a luxury to work from home, but this is not always the case. While virtual work does bring some aspects of flexibility, we know that it also comes with longer work hours as people have fewer boundaries. Taya highlights the importance of a trial and error period so that people can test out different approaches and determine what is best for their employees and for the team as a whole. Furthermore, Taya also suggests that companies sit down and reflect on what the work life of the company looked like before and after the pandemic, and what employees liked and disliked about each one. Through this exercise, companies can effectively identify what has and has not been working in terms of their work-life balance over the course of the pandemic.
As mentioned previously, Jane's interview highlighted the need for another person to be hired. This created a new problem when choosing who to hire. Because Jane was working at an unsustainable 7 days per week, including nights, it was really important that they make this decision quickly and have the person ready to begin work immediately. However, the university hiring bureaucracy is quite long, so the team needed to be extra quick on their end to have the new person start as soon as possible. They looked at hiring UNB MBA alumni because an alumni of the program would be very familiar with how the one-year intensive program works, and that new hire would need minimal training in order to begin fulfilling their role. They put a call out to alumni of the program, and the whole process came down to 2 outstanding applicants. Things they looked for in the application to arrive at the final 2 were ability to thrive in a fast-paced environment, team fit, initiative, problem-solving capability, and ability to work independently while representing the UNB brand well. Because both alumni had previous experience working for local employers, Jane also looked at third-party feedback about their work performance. There ended up being a long debate because one applicant had better writing skills while the other one had superior communication skills. Ultimately, the communication skills were deemed more important for this role because the role includes a lot of time talking to potential employers to arrange internships for current students. Diversity was also a consideration during the application process because of the advancement of our political climate and the need for new viewpoints in the workplace. However, because most of the alumni from this program are previous international students, there was not further measures taken than to compare the diversity profiles between the final two applicants. The successful applicant was a woman who originates from Mexico, while the unsuccessful applicant was also a woman from Nigeria. While neither applicant reported any other diversity criteria such as a disability or being a part of the LGBTQIA+ community, so both applicants were equally diverse, and diversity was not a major decision factor between the two applicants. From the hiring process, we can learn a few things. First of all, it is important as an applicant to showcase all of your relevant skills because you never quite know what the employer is looking for, and it is best to show all the possible ways you may contribute to the job because often decisions between applicants come down to the smallest of margins. Second, it is important to make sure that your references you are providing for your job application are going to not only give you a good reference, but they're going to highlight your skills with specific examples. Third, it is important as an employer to advertise your job to the audience that you want to make your hiring process easier. In Jane's case, they wanted a UNB MBA alumni, so they only advertised the job to that group of people. Fourth, it is very important as an employer to take diversity into account for two reasons. One, because it sets a precedent that you value diverse perspectives and experiences, and two, because those diverse experiences and perspectives will actually enrich your workplace and ultimately result in better quality of work.
The third interview we conducted was with Peter Sissis, who works as the Chief Financial Officer at a private equity firm in Toronto. In his role as CFO, he manages a team of 11 individuals who are responsible for the administration, financial, and tax reporting of Birch Hill's investment funds. In his interview, Peter mainly talked about the path that Birch Hill took throughout the pandemic with regards to remote work and their recent return to in-person. Although management wanted everyone back in the office, Peter saw that his team wanted to work from home at least part-time, and they worked together to come up with a hybrid plan for the finance team. We'll be expanding on this in the coming slides. In his interview, Peter talked a bit about this overarching conflict between ownership and employees. Ownership tends to want people to be in the office where they can see them and understand what is happening with their business, while employees want the benefits that come along with remote work. Peter was in somewhat of a unique position because he fell somewhere in the middle. He could see that having his team work from home offered them a ton of flexibility, helped their productivity, and met certain needs. But at the same time, he agreed with ownership that working from the office offers some indispensable benefits. Peter felt that what would be good for the employees would be good for the company, and this is why he advocated for their needs and worked together with them to come up with a 6-month trial hybrid work plan. One thing that this relates to is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As we know, Maslow's hierarchy has 5 levels: physiological, safety, love and belonging, esteem, and self-actualization. From Peter's perspective, working from home at least part-time helps satisfy certain physiological and safety needs, such as employees being able to work from the safety and comfort of their homes and getting to spend more time with family. This was especially relevant during the pandemic when commuting on subways or being in shared spaces was anxiety-inducing for many. Further, when working from home, people can save money and time on commutes and other related expenses, which may help people meet financial needs that are unique to their situation. However, he also believes that being in an office with others is critical for other aspects of relationship and career development and therefore self-actualization. Peter stated that working from an office allows for collaboration, team building, training, and professional development to be facilitated in a way that just isn't possible remotely. Team building and collaboration help foster relationships between colleagues, which helps satisfy relationship and esteem needs. Peter believes that a hybrid work model ultimately allows someone to reach self-actualization as working from home and from an office fulfill different levels of needs. The idea that the top 3 levels of Maslow's hierarchy are harder to achieve in remote settings was fairly consistent across the literature. In contrast to this view, though, Leanne Verzamnieks explores how each level can be obtained in a remote work setting while addressing potential challenges. The biggest difference between these perspectives is that she felt that self-actualization could be made possible while working from home because you have the flexibility and freedom within your day to create your own environment and prioritize what matters to you most beyond work. She did note, however, that esteem and belonging are harder to achieve at home because colleague interaction and feedback from managers is less frequent. Perhaps needs vary between each person, and people will gravitate to jobs based on their own individual needs.
An additional insight gained from our interview with Peter Zissis was that prospective employees are placing increasing importance on work-from-home options. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in work-from-home options becoming the top priority when considering the characteristics of a new job. This is relevant both when employees are evaluating their current positions and considering switching jobs, but also when they are actively seeking out new employment. This has also become an important consideration for hiring processes and when determining how different roles can be structured to ensure that hybrid work is possible. If a firm cannot offer some sort of work-from-home flexibility, they risk losing out on the most suitable candidates in the job market. Peter Zissis mentioned that this has been a trend seen across many financial investment management firms, including his own. When Birch Hill was in the process of hiring someone last August, there were a couple candidates who completely withdrew from the interviewing process after hearing that hybrid work was not available at that time. This caused the department to pivot and rethink their work models based on the feedback they had received, and the realization that, quote, we may not be able to access the best and brightest available if we don't adapt our workplace model. In the literature, this has been named the Great Resignation, referring to the phenomenon in which we are seeing employees more readily deciding to leave their jobs if they feel they are not good for their own well-being. In fact, 34% of employees in a Robert Half survey said they would not choose to stay at or accept a new job if remote work was not an option. Paul McDonald, Senior Executive Director at Talent Solutions, urges companies to adapt their policies to this growing preference for work flexibility, or they may risk losing out. Raghu Bhargava, CEO of Global Upside, explains that many employers still feel they should and will return to normal pre-pandemic workplaces, when in fact, this is the new normal. He warns that companies that do not evolve with the workforce risk losing competitiveness as they witness the job market evolve around them. In fact, it has been projected that by the end of 2022, 25% of professional jobs in North America will be performed remotely. A different perspective was shared by Howard Levitt in the Financial Post, and he stressed that employers protect themselves from this rise in the use of remote work and work flexibility as make or break characteristics of employment. He warns that employers should not let their employees remain working remotely for too long, or they risk constructive dismissal claims. He recommends that employers require their employees to sign contracts stating that they can be called to return to work within 1 month. Now, this is in contrast to other perspectives in the literature that urge companies to evolve with the wishes of their workforce. It will be interesting to see how the workforce reacts to these demands placed on them by employers, and whether this period of resignation continues throughout 2022 and even into 2023. There's no doubt that the COVID-19 pandemic has revolutionized the way we conceptualize work and the workplace, and will continue to do so. It will certainly be interesting to see what the new normal is 1 year and even 5 years down the road, and compare that to the hybrid models we're seeing evolve today. We want to thank you for listening to our presentation, and we look forward to engaging with you in the forum below.